Let's do it.
There we go. Gentlemen, we are being live streamed. Great to see you all. Thanks for doing this today. And how's everybody doing? Happy New Year.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you for having
Happy New Year.
us.
How did everyone enjoy the break?
It was pretty
Christmas
good.
break.
I enjoyed it a little bit too much. Now I find it hard to get back on the horse, but getting there slowly.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. I think I'm doing better than most years, but I went hard on the eggnog and cookies and such over December. So I got about 10 pounds that I told myself last week I'd get back on the routine, but it hasn't been pristine yet, let's say.
Well, difference for me is I don't think I consider it a break having 4 kids as I do during Christmas.
Holiday, then. Holiday might be more appropriate.
So I guess this first week was a bit more relaxing, getting back to work. I'm joking. It's amazing. With 4 kids, Christmas is really special. Yeah,
I bet. Well, you know, we're obviously going to discuss what's been going on in Madeira, because over the last, well, especially the last, I guess, 18 months now, it's been kind of in the public awareness that something interesting is going on over there. And you guys have put together the F.R.E.E. Madeira project, which I want to discuss. But just so that everyone listening has a bit of background on you guys, can we just go around? Rob, maybe we'll start with you and just, you know, what your background is, what your relation to Bitcoin is, and then what your relation to both the, you know, Madeira as a geographic location and then the F.R.E.E. Madeira project. And then we're going to just get it rolling from there.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for being invited on. My background is in elite sport, and I kind of transitioned from working with elite athletes in mainly soccer, ballet, and then consulting in different like martial arts and stuff, and transitioned into working predominantly online and working with the mind and helping athletes to see, or high performers really, because I work with all different types of people, to see the patterns in their conditioning that is holding them back. So that's what I do when I work with someone is try and find the truth. So when I was trying to understand money and value, when I did that deep dive into trying to understand the truth about money, I came across Bitcoin and then the rabbit hole. And so, you know, my background in sort of always trying to find the truth is Bitcoin is, if you're interested in the truth, you're going to arrive at Bitcoin. So that's my background. I was looking for somewhere to bring up my children, my wife and my 2 little girls. And we were looking all over the world. We could move anywhere because I've been online since 2008. And with the lockdown, there were some islands I wanted to go to that were very restrictive. And the moment I realized that was too much, I heard someone walk past me and say the word Madeira. And I was like, what's Madeira? It was exactly the moment I made the decision not to go to this island. And then someone later in the day used the word Madeira. So I was like, where's Madeira? And then booked a flight. I think it was like that night to check it out. Doing a little search on Twitter, and I found Andre. And so we met up for a coffee. This was last year. And, you know, it was just like 2 Bitcoin maxis. And he had just amazing ideas. And we were in a tropical cafe, like subtropical, but it's just the most beautiful place. And I'm listening to this guy talking about what's possible in this island. And the people here are just wonderful people. I've been to most countries looking to move there, and where the people here, they give my little girls bananas and grapes. Like the older people always give them things as they walk past in the street. It's just a very, very welcoming culture for children. And then it's stunning, and the food's amazing, and the light is amazing. It's wonderful year round. I'm out in my shorts today in January here. And so, you know, when Andre said, hey, we're putting together something, do you want to join? I was like, absolutely. I was also working with my wife to set up a self-directed learning center or a community environment here in conjunction with F.R.E.E. Madeira, so that when Bitcoiners can come over, there's a place for their children, like-minded, not just Bitcoiners, but people who are interested in allowing their kids the freedom to choose what they're interested in, and so they flourish without, the children to become their own self-authority. You see, it's just truthful. You want your kids to have their own authority. So her and I are working with Andre and Alvaro from who's just left now, who's going to be doing something with F.R.E.E. Madeira, I think. And we're working hard to make that happen. So there's on my side of things, I keep my business going. That's my work, and on the other side, I have the privilege to be working with Nico, Andre, Knut, and then connect with people like Jeff and the big players. It's just a real privilege to be on this island. It's absolutely beautiful.
So you've been there a year, right?
I was there a few months last year, and I moved over and started, visas and everything in June, I think. So I haven't been here that
Living
long.
there a full year yet. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Nico, why don't you go next?
All right, thanks, John, for inviting me. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. My name is Nico. I'm from Finland. I'm a construction engineer by fiat trade, and I started leaving fiat world behind in 2011 when I kind of experienced a bit of a burnout and saw all the pointlessness of paying infinite taxes the more you work. So increasing taxes rather. So I left my job, my so-called good construction engineer job, traveled the world for a year, and then I tried to reintegrate back to the fiat life, but I was unemployable at that point. I had become permanently a fiat freedom maximalist world denizen, so I felt like I didn't identify with my old life anymore, so I couldn't reintegrate. So I started my own consultancy in construction still. And then in 2017, I read the Bitcoin white paper. I've heard about it before, but not ever really looked at it carefully. And that's when I got obsessed with Bitcoin and consumed everything, like often happens at that point. Took the shitcoin road. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Learned a lot, very expensive lesson. 2018 started the first Bitcoin association in Finland, started education route, did like about 100 podcasts and stuff like that, talked to the regulators, realized that that's not the way to go, started Consensus Network, translated Cypherdian's Bitcoin standard in Finnish first, realized that there's more demand like this everywhere in the world for every language. So then my company started specializing in translating this specific book and other books as well, Bitcoin books, into local languages, any language, basically wherever we can find people doing the work, then I would just publish them. I taught myself to be a publisher. So that's my Bitcoin trade. So I'm still by fiat trade, I'm still a construction engineer. I have all that skill set. Maybe I'll use them to build a Citadel here in Madeira at someday, hopefully. I wanna go back. But yeah, for now, it's just all about the information distribution and trying to reach as many people as possible. And that's why localization is so important, because not most of the world is not competent enough in English to be able to understand this knowledge that is very immensely. And usually those people are the ones that could mostly benefit from the information. So that's why localization is so important. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Madeira. I got Madeira pilled by another Bitcoiner, a friend of mine who doesn't stay on the island anymore. I was looking for options. I was staying I'm kind of like a digital nomad, or whatever you might call that. Whenever I stay one place for 1 year or longer, I get itchy feet. I want to move on. So I was staying in Finland for over a year, and it's depressing. It's as dark as ass, cold as, not hell, but something else resembling that. So I was looking for options, and that was a perfect timing for me. So he contacted me. It took me 2 weeks to book the flights. Came here first with my older son to check it out. Took us 2 weeks to fall in love with the island. Called my wife, pack your bags, we're moving here. Took her 2 months to relocate here. We've been here for about 18 months now. June 21, I think that's when I came to the island. and I don't have itchy feet. That's the thing. Like, on the contrary, when I go out from Madeira, I want to go back. So this is something I've never experienced anywhere in the world. So for me, it's great. Like, great for remote working. You can go out in a t-shirt basically any time of the day, any time of the year. That's something that a guy from Finland is not really used to. Like, it's a Finnish summer all year round. So yeah, that was those were the main reasons why I came here. I didn't know anybody on the island. Actually, we met with Andre by chance through Twitter. I think maybe Knut hooked us up because we were both working on the Portuguese translations of Bitcoin books. I did the Bitcoin Standard, and he's basically done all of the other books. So then we got talking on Twitter, and then we realized we're practically neighbors, which was a really funny thing. Like, we live really close by, and of course we met and got talking, and then we've been working together ever since. And this was before F.R.E.E. Madeira. All that stuff started happening. That happened really fast. Like, after a couple months, he was like, "Oh, dude, Nico, I just talked to the president, and I'm going to orange bill the president, take him to Miami." I was like, what are you talking about? And here we are, like a little bit over a year after. Things are moving really fast. We've had 3 meetups, great meetups so far. Great turnout. Like, the first one, I think we had 30 people. The second 2, we had more than 20. And the great thing is there's always new faces. So we probably reach like something between 70 to 80 individuals on the island, whether there be travelers or expats or locals, mostly expats, I think. And even some people are now crafting their travel plans to fit the meetup schedule so they can make it. And I even run into a Finnish guy who saw me on Saifedean's pod and heard me talk about the project. He amended his travel plans just to come and hang out in the meetup in Madeira, which was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Aside from the temperature, right? Having it be summer all year round, what do you find so appealing about Madeira? And aside from the Bitcoin stuff, if we can suspend that for a moment.
Right. Yeah, the Bitcoin stuff was never really, I mean, of course, the zero tax was a factor, sure, but that was never really the reason. Like, I just want a comfortable place to live and to work, good internet, service. It's like a small Finnish, well, all the towns and cities in Finland are small. It's like a Finnish city, like everything is walking distance in Funchal. You have all the services that you might need. Most of the time, I'll admit, I'll stay on my desk indoors anyway. But I like the option. Like, when you're in Finland in the middle of the forest and you want to go somewhere in the winter, you can't. Like, you have to plow some snow and jump into a car and drive 30 minutes before you're anywhere. So you don't have the option. I like the optionality here, and I can jump into a plane and go anywhere as well. So the optionality is there. There's plenty of things to do here for the kids. I find it extremely safe, even safer than Finland, which is great because I have 2 kids, and yeah, it's just and also, yeah, one big thing was the quality of life, at least compared to, like, if you come from a country like Finland that is quite expensive, you can get like a lifestyle boost of 30-40% here with the same budget. Like, I can with my family, I can live in the city center here in a comfortable apartment and eat whatever we want, and, you know, live that kind of a life that would have been extremely expensive in Finland. And like, there's no downsides really. The only downside is that you can't really find a proper sauna here, but you can't have everything. You can't find a proper sauna outside Finland. I'm pretty adamant about that.
All right, Andre, over to you.
Hey, well, about me, I'm the Madeiran guy in the equation, so I was always here, right? Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, although I don't like the word a lot. So I own several businesses here in the island, and I turned out recently, not that long ago, as a true Bitcoiner, I guess. And when your mind gets infected, you start trying to get it more and more into your life and doing something in the space. And that's where Nico was mentioning the books, that was where it all started. I started a Bitcoin only publishing company in Portuguese, with the goal of translating all the best literature that I could find to Portuguese, because I couldn't find it at the time at the bookstores. It was either there was nothing on the space, or there were just some shitcoin books. And yeah, that's where it all started for me, as in regards of working in the space.
So were you born in Madeira?
Well, I wasn't born here, but that was an accident, because my parents were studying in Lisbon at the time, because that happens a lot with a lot of Madeirans go to university in Lisbon.
Right.
And my parents had me, they were pretty young when they had me. My mother was 17 and she was at university at the time. So that was purely by chance. All the families are from here, and I came back as a baby to Madeira and lived, I was not born, but raised in Madeira. As a Madeiran. And yeah, I just went back to Lisbon for university, as a lot of us do.
And all right, so because my first kind of exposure to this, Andre, was through Princey, right? He was telling me, how a crazy story came together that resulted in going to Bitcoin. Was it 2022? Yeah, 2022.
Yeah, it was just last year
in Miami. Bitcoin time is so weird. It feels like so long ago.
Yeah.
And all the things that came together with the president, and then also Prince Philip, and then, making an announcement at the conference and all that kind of stuff. And then when you guys, I think the first day you arrived, we had lunch together and just kind of talked about, everything that was going on. But I think it started, correct me if I'm wrong, with you somehow pitching or coming across the president and saying something about Bitcoin. So can you kind of, can you set the groundwork for how Bitcoin and Madeira kind of came to be associated with one another?
So, as I said, I own several businesses in the island, and one of them is a co-working space. So I have a co-working space in downtown Funchal for quite a while, since 2013. Since nobody knew what co-work was at the time. It was very hard in the beginning, but we made it through, and now we are very successful, fortunately. But after COVID, Madeira, the government pushed a program for nomads. I guess they were anxious to have people back in the island after closing, because Madeira is very dependent on tourism. And they pushed this program through a public entity called Startup Madeira, and they did this digital village in Madeira, and did a lot of marketing, as Madeira being a good spot for nomads and remote workers. And it did work. A lot of people came to Madeira because of it, and especially during when COVID started reopening. Let's put it like this. A lot of people came because Madeira you could be freer here, okay, comparing to the major cities in Europe and elsewhere. People felt, a lot of nomads came and rented houses and rooms all over the island, especially in more remote locations, and had peace of mind and a bit of freedom, and it worked very well. And because Madeira is already spectacular in terms of nature and quality of life and weather, as the other guys already mentioned, word of mouth kept running, and it turned out to be a more and more successful. A lot of people came. And I think that's where the president started to see a lot of foreigners, as the nomads were, and a lot of the nomads use crypto, right? Not only Bitcoin, as we know, but they use crypto, and they started talking about crypto. And if you put on top of that Portugal was a tax-free country for crypto, there were a lot of incoming people in the area. And conversation started, and of course it reached the ears of the president, and he started seeing all the movement with the young generations using crypto and so on. And I was having some conversations with him regarding the expansion of co-work. And he decided to do a formal visit to the co-working space downtown. And that's where it happened, because we visited all the space, and at the end, we were having another conversation, and the president was blabbing on about, we have to open up Madeira to these younger generations, to technology, to, we cannot be forever dependent on tourism only, and on the low salaries that it's the majority of jobs in the tourism sector. And of course, COVID was eye-opening on what happens to an island that is dependent on tourism, right? And I took the opportunity, basically, and I said, well, maybe I can help, and I pointed at the Bitcoin accepted here sign that I had at co-work, of course, and the guy, he looked at the Bitcoin sign and kept going like, oh yes, of course, crypto is the future. All these younger generations, they use crypto for everything. It's amazing. Money's gonna die. Crypto is the future. They know best, and all that conversation. So I kept digging. So I said, no, I can help, but this is about Bitcoin only. But it was far away from that at the time.
Right.
And I just took the opportunity to say that I could help, and that I could possibly bring investors and technology to the island and help the overall goal of the government. And he said, yeah, of course, do that. And that was it, basically. And then because I had already started the Bitcoin publishing book company, then I already had some network. I translated Jeff's book and VJ's book, and Thank God for Bitcoin from Jimmy Song and Breedlove's book. And I already had some books going on, and I was already talking to Daniel. And Daniel was, as you know, very approachable and a very networking guy as well. So it was the first guy I reached out to, basically just saying, hey, I'm way over my head. I need your help right now. And and the rest is history. And yeah, that was the beginning of everything. Yeah.
Right, but just to finish off the story, how did you go from encountering the president at the co-working space and initial conversations about Bitcoin to, because I was emceeing when he was on stage at the Bitcoin conference. One funny anecdote I remember off stage, to the side, because I think the guy from Roatan or a representative from there was on before him.
Yeah.
And when they were both on the side of the stage, I remember the president, I guess Samson was the next one on, and so the three of us were to the side, and the president of Madeira was like giving speaking tips to the guy from Roatan. He's like, you got to stop moving around so much. You want to plant your feet. You want to bring your energy up through your groin. And he was like rubbing the inside of his groin.
I know
like
all
that.
about that. He repeats that a lot. You have to stand like a little bit to the side, one foot in front of the other.
I thought it was so funny. But how did that happen? How did he come to be, making a sort of announcement, but basically just being there on the stage in Miami?
Yeah, it all happened in retrospective. It happened very fast. But so I reached out to Daniel. Daniel is a true Bitcoiner, LFG, let's go. Started reaching out to people. The first guy he reached out was Alan Farrington, and Alan reached Samson, and we started a chat group. And the first goal was to bring Samson here. But then there was an agenda incompatibility between Samson and the president. We couldn't do it. I started bringing other people. Actually, there's a shitcoiner in the middle of all this story, that was really important in convincing the president. But we started with Samson. We tried to make the arrangements. We couldn't. And I was like, how can I do this? And I had another client, because I also own a vacation rental management. And I had this luxury villa here owned by an Hong Kong resident. Well, he's actually British, but he lives in Hong Kong working for Goldman Sachs. And coincidentally, he came to Madeira on vacations and we had a meeting, and I turned up. So he had quit Goldman Sachs to join Bullish, you know, the very big exchange in Gibraltar, shitcoin exchange, but quite big.
I think I saw them at 2022.
Yeah,
they
they
had the
had
mechanical bull in the
I'm not sure
in
it
the
was them,
expo
but they
area?
had this. They had at the time it was Peter Thiel was one of the investors. They had a big investment in the beginning, like on the billions, so quite a big company, and there was something that he needed my help, and I took the opportunity. I said, "Okay, I'll help you, but you'll help me as well. So I'll bring you to a meeting with the president." But you have to convince him how important it is to come to Miami with me because we need him there. And it actually worked. That and another Zoom call that we managed to do with Samson and Jeff Booth, they were both present with the president. And that was the flipping point. And then he decided that, okay, let's go to Miami and check it out.
Okay, and last question on this part of the story, but I also know, I don't think it's a secret that there was another pit stop before going on stage at the conference. You and Princey and the president and some other people had a brunch with someone.
Oh yeah, but this is already in Miami, right?
Yeah.
So
I just want, that's not private, right? I think I've heard people.
No, it's
right.
it's
So
well,
you guys have brunch at Casa del Sailor. So
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
what was that all like?
So I don't know how Daniel pulled it, but he was able to arrange breakfast at Tiffany's. Well, not at Tiffany's, but at Sailor's, right? And it was actually our first morning, so we were fresh off Miami. I just arrived last night. We actually went to I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a big connection between Madeira and Venezuela. There's a big community of Madeira people in Venezuela.
Yeah.
And a lot of investors, a lot of wealthy people of Madeira in Venezuela, and a lot of them have businesses in Miami as well. So there's a big community of Venezuela people in Miami connected to Madeira. So our first night there, we went to the Miami Eats, so FTX Arena, right? But it was actually quite a very nice experience. And then the next morning we were at Sailor's house, and that was something for sure. You know, the president was still, I think, not really understanding exactly what would happen, and then he put him on Sailor's table.
Just wind up Sailor, and he goes for an hour, and everyone just is sitting there listening.
Yeah, it was exactly that. So we were there already, you know, waiting for Michael. Michael arrives, and then we just started, you know, explaining a bit what the intentions were. And you're correct. So the flip goes on, and Michael goes for over an hour, basically, non-stop. And I think you can sum it up, you know, with everything that is said, you can sum it up to don't touch other stuff or you're going to be an asshole.
Right.
And that was really important, actually, because it was like a truck eating the president straight on. And it helped a lot with the rest of the days.
And so then he goes on stage, he makes the announcement. What happens in Madeira? Actually, before I even get into that, I'd like to hear a little bit more context, and just in terms of like what Bitcoin life is like in Madeira right now. So, you know, I assume there's a number of, you know, maybe Rob, why don't you just, you can touch on this because, you know, you live there and you live a normal life there. So what is it like in terms of using or interacting with Bitcoin in Madeira? You're muted.
Thanks.
There you go.
Normally, there are levadas here, which are these streams, man-made streams everywhere. So you can walk. There's a labyrinth of these everywhere. So I walk up there to Andre's office and I knock on the door and I go in, and then I, you know, like Dave Chappelle I'm like, what's happened? Because there's a daily new news, and then I go on my day. I'm kind of like the guy that's always hanging around in his office. In terms of how I wherever I go, I say, do you take Bitcoin? There's a range of like no to don't really understand it, etc. So I had my haircut a few days ago down the road, a really nice new barbers with the beauticians next door. I had my haircut. I said to there's a lot of Brazilians or Venezuelans who are working here. So we were speaking, I was trying to speak Portuguese, and I said, do you like Bitcoin? He goes, I love Bitcoin. It's very big in Brazil. My brother owns Bitcoin and stuff. And I said, can I tip you? And he's like, yeah, and he had a wallet. So I tipped him, and then I said, who's the boss? And I went to the boss and I said, listen, I'd like to be able to pay him the full thing in Bitcoin. And I'd like to put your barbers on the BTC map. And then if you kind of support what we're trying to do here, or I just said, I'm not doing this for myself, I do it for my kids. And I explained a little bit about Bitcoin and just said, we'll all come and support you. All the Bitcoiners come and have their haircut. And he's like, he started off like, I don't really understand it. And then by the end of it, I said, listen, if there's a problem, you need cash, I'll come and buy your sats. And he's like, no, I'll keep half of the Bitcoin. He started to get the importance. So they'll accept full Bitcoin. The beautician, big female, I shouldn't say female, the beauticians next door, they're accepting Bitcoin. So I'm going to go and do the sushi place down the road. So it's very much, in my opinion, right now, in terms of using Bitcoin, it's like I'm the guy in the field dancing, and Andre's dancing, and Nico's dancing, and there's a few other, and it's just that there's 5 going to come, and then I can see it happening already. There's more and more people coming, and it's daily, weekly, compound.
Can I interrupt, Rob? There was something really interesting that happened after we publicly unveiled the F.R.E.E. Madeira in October. It's so recent still, but the same feeling I had before Miami and all of this happened, that there was a time that I thought I was the only Bitcoiner in the island. And what I'm feeling now is that, well, I'm not feeling, I know for sure, and still a lot more to come, is that there were already a lot of Bitcoiners and true Bitcoiners, some still not there as Max is, but going there, and and that a lot of interest in the area. So I can give you some examples. Now that we started going over and publicly speaking about it, having meetups, going to merchants, all of that, we're finding, of course, lots of no's, lots of course not. That's a scam. That's all over, like everywhere else. But we are finding a lot more than I anticipated that are very welcoming, and immediately say yes, of course. So they were there, and now that what seemed to have been missing was this kind of glue or connection that made us all connect with each other, basically. For example, I don't know who told me this story. I'm a bit confused now, but just 2 days ago, I think it was Alvaro that was here. He just went today, he's coming next month again. Nice story that we can speak about regarding education with Rob as well. But he was in a cab, I believe, or a Bolt or whatever. And he mentioned the Venezuelan guy, and he started the conversation because Alvaro is Spanish, so he started, where are you from, and so on. And this guy is already using Bitcoin for remittances to his family in Venezuela. Mm-hmm. So, especially in the Venezuelan community, there's lots of them, of course, as you know, very much easier to learn about how Bitcoin is important if you're a Venezuelan than if you're a, privileged guy in Western Europe. basically.
Mhm.
But again, just to add to that, that there are a lot more people and a lot more understanding that even I anticipated at the beginning of all of this.
Has there been, since the announcement at the conference, you know, El Salvador has had a big influx now, albeit the announcements were different. And actually, maybe someone can just kind of summarize what the president's announcement actually was, because it wasn't as, I guess, cut and dry or as big of a splash as, let's say, the Bukele announcement. But has there been an influx of Bitcoiners coming to check it out, setting up shop, you know, starting businesses, that kind of stuff there yet? Or has that not materialized yet? Anyone can jump in.
Can I go?
Yeah.
Yes, and I was overwhelmed at the amount of people that reached out after the the announcement, the public announcement in Amsterdam. Not only a lot of people already came. You know, of course, people come to check it out first. You know, don't trust, verify. They're actually trying to coincide with the meetups. You know, talking, reaching out. Personally, I'm already opening up companies for several people because I have a company that can help. So I'm already doing at least 4 incorporations, and 3 people are searching for real estate to buy. And there's a list now of many people coming now in February, March, April, and so on. So it is, in that sense, it's working. And one of the main goals is actually exactly that, to increase the community. Because if you do increase the community and you have a bunch of like-minded people around, and we can go on what the plans of F.R.E.E. Madeira are to incentivize all of that. I think the rest will come almost organically and naturally after that.
Let's can we just cover what the president said at the conference, and basically, like, when we're talking about budding Bitcoin citadels, you know, the landscape is great, and the food and the people and all that kind of stuff, but what Bitcoin specific, you know, or incentives, let's say, that would appeal to Bitcoiners specifically are currently being either discussed or implemented in Madeira? Like, what's that primary pull, and what is the government doing to support or reduce, you know, friction and regulation? You know, what's the main draw here?
Well, there's still not much in terms of regulation or a differentiator that the government is providing to Bitcoin companies. I think there was the Miami thing, as it was too fast, you know, and the president, before we went there, there was no plans for an announcement. And honestly, I was against the announcement at the time.
Yeah.
Just to make it sure. Especially,
it seems like, do you think
with the wording of the announcement?
Do you think they just wanted an announcement, like, you know, the conference wanted a bigger announcement, and maybe one dropped out, and so they decided to try to put a few
there was
together?
A bit of that. There was a bit of many things, a bit of that mixed with a bit of excitement of the president to make a splash, because he was there. I think his initial idea was, oh, we'll go there and talks about, oh, Madeira is so friendly with taxes, we're going to bring a lot of companies here, we're just going to distribute cars and they're going to come. And so he was kind of excited to go on stage and just appeal to everyone. They wanted to make an announcement. And I think the wording, which I was against, was not appropriate, because they did a small announcement and said, you know, we were adopting Bitcoin. And that created a lot of confusion at the beginning, right? Because most people thought that it was referring to creating laws for Bitcoin to be a legal tender, which was never a possibility, because we are an outermost region of Europe, a semi-autonomous region of Portugal, and we are under their umbrella. So there are limitations to our independence. We are not independent, but limitations to our, how can I say this, to our sovereignty. There are some rules that we need to comply with the main Portuguese government. So that was never a possibility. And You know, at the time, I said, we discussed that, and I said, okay, it's adopting Bitcoin in the terms that we use at F.R.E.E. Madeira is adopting by the people, you know, on a bottoms-up perspective, adopting as to their lives, to their businesses, to their. It was never adopting Bitcoin on a sovereign level as a currency, but it created a confusion. I was aiming for. I recommended at the time that they used embracing Bitcoin because it was more friendlier, I guess, and not that confusing. But I went with adopting. It created a bit confusion in the beginning. But just to clarify that at the time there was still no, even the organization or the way we would go about it. It was nothing was planned back then. It was just intentions, and in the mind of the president, it was always about, you know, again, a main goal of Madeira to be not as dependent on tourism and embracing technologies as a whole, new generations, bringing people in. So for decades, Madeira had a big disadvantage in the world, right? We were a remote island. We couldn't compete on industry or on other stuff. So, and now with this new digital connected world, we finally have an advantage because we can compete, you know, for the most, a lot of companies can work wherever they want. A lot of people can work whatever they want. COVID accelerated that a lot, as we know. And finally, is being smart about it as Madeira being finally having an advantage against other jurisdictions because it's a fantastic place to be. The infrastructures are there, you know, all of that. So in his mind, the announcement was all about that. Is the government is supporting a new technology and knows that, you know, the new generations will embrace it, and it's something that is here to stay, and yeah, they want to support it.
Right. So at the time, a very vague, just we're pro Bitcoin basically was the signal, without any, you know, real, nothing really concrete. I know a lot of people had gone to Portugal, you know, for the last several years because I think there was no capital gains taxes maybe on crypto, right? But one, has that not changed, or is that not changing in the forthcoming budget? And again, so like if we can just, so that everyone has an understanding of like the prime incentives here related to Bitcoin, what is unique about Madeira, or at the very least, what is being discussed as potentially being, you know, attractive to Bitcoiners? Again, outside of all the other amazing stuff about Madeira, but about exclusively as it relates to Bitcoin.
So far, nothing. We are still studying the document that basically, how do I say this in English? Where can we go as an autonomous region as far as laws? You know, where can we go? Because we cannot, for example, I'll give proper examples, right? Tax, and you're correct. Finally, on this, well, finally, depends on the perspective, but the new budget already has a crypto tax law. They approved it. It's been published just I think last week finally, and now crypto as a whole is taxed in Portugal, and there is no differentiation between Bitcoin and the rest. It's all in the same bucket, you know. Could have been worse, because at least there's 365 days, and after that, if you hold for more than 1 year, it's still zero. So that's a good thing. And I think they left it there as a workaround, because the government was being pressured by the left wings and the EU. Regarding the tax on crypto. So I think my feeling is they needed to show something, do something, you know. And but they left this thing of the 1 year because they also didn't want to kill all the startup movement that they were seeing especially in Lisbon. There was a lot of movement there, not only crypto startups, but a lot of startups. It became like this startup city because of an old project called Startup Lisboa, and the thing picked up, and there's co-working spaces all over and startup factories and unicorns and all that thing, you know. So, and it was, crypto was seen as part of that movement that up in Lisbon and changed the whole city basically for the last 10 years. So they also didn't want to kill it at all. Okay, so they left some cherries, let's call it.
Right.
But again, so whatever the Portuguese government decides, we have to comply. There are some things we can apply, like a difference on the tax for a 30% difference. For example, corporate tax rate. In the mainland, it's 20%, and we can apply a 30% difference. So here on the normal regime, it's around 14%. And as a plus, we have the International Business Center and the tax-free zone, where some companies can incorporate there, and they even have a more reduced corporate tax rate on the 5%. And that's given as a bonus from Europe for compensating for being an outermost region of Europe, basically. So on the taxes, we are limited on what we can do. Just some differences between the regular main laws and the regional laws. But there are other areas where we are studying where we can go deeper. For example, we cannot cut the taxes, but maybe we can give incentives to Bitcoin companies that incorporate in the island. Or we can maybe, we're studying this is just ideas, right, so far. We can do a mini international business center for decentralized currencies, for example, as a study on the technologies. So there are many things that we are trying to study on the law side of it.
Random question, but this 1 year rule, how the hell is that administered or like watched over? Like, do you have to declare that you've disposed of Bitcoin and prove that you acquired like an equal amount of Bitcoin more than 365 days before? Like, it just seems like such a impossible to
John, when you read the final drafting of the law, you understand that it's impossible to enforce. But that's
right.
A different subject at all, right? I read it and I laughed my ass out because they're crazy. They don't know what they're dealing with. And there's other stuff in the middle. Do you want to laugh? They excluded in the final draft, they excluded NFTs
from tax,
from being taxed. Yeah.
Why?
Ask them. There's a whole story also about our lobbying at the national parliament and what happened afterwards. But I can sum it up, and we tried to, because they were already, receiving people and asking stakeholders' opinions and all of that for the law. Long story, but in the end, you realize that they already had this planned since they knew they were going to do the tax draft, and it was always based on what the EU recommended.
Right.
And that NFT thing, I remember sending a message to an MP in the national parliament and asking the same question, like, what the hell? what is this? Like, why are you excluding NFTs from the tax? So what was the purpose of this? And the guy, of course, didn't even know what I was asking, honestly.
Right.
But he said, we don't make up things, we follow the directives. And he sent me this ECB link where they had these recommendations. And I just said, man, I just saw a post from you last week on Instagram or whatever, and you were so worried about the use of cryptocurrencies to illegal activities, and you're just excluding one of the assets that is most used for wash trading out of the tax law. This is just dumb. And they never replied again. So I think I'm not best friends with them anymore.
All right. Well, what I was going to ask is, because it sounds like if someone's listening, they're probably thinking, I mean, I don't want to discredit the boots on the ground, like organic nature of what's happening, but they're probably thinking, well, if it's something as informal as the president just saying we're pro Bitcoin. One might ask, like, well, what happens if that person is no longer the president and the kind of attitude towards it all changes and they're not that pro Bitcoin? But then I immediately thought, does it really matter? Like, 'cause everyone's interested in the various announcements and the whole sovereign individual thesis playing out and how different jurisdictions are going to apply their regulations to this stuff. But maybe it's starting to seem to be the case that maybe that doesn't really matter. I mean, that's the whole point of the Bitcoin parallel economy, right? It's like, it's not in that world. And if you have people that you can trade with that are willing to accept Bitcoin and that you're willing to pay for Bitcoin, then, you can create your own digital parallel cash economy. And it doesn't really matter what the regulations say, because what can they do about it? How can they even know about it, basically? Now, there's nuance to that argument, depends on the scale in which you're spending and what's being transacted and that kind of stuff. But, because we see these initiatives picking up all over the world, Beef Initiative in the States, and, all these also smaller projects that are popping up in jurisdictions that are no more favorable toward Bitcoin than anywhere else. But you're seeing that there's a natural incentive, there's a natural inclination, there's a natural desire of certain people to begin transacting in this form of money and leaving aside, the fiat world. So do you think it matters all that much if a new president is elected at some point and they're less bullish or, less embracing of Bitcoin in terms of what's being cultivated currently in Madeira? Anyone can answer that, but what do you guys think?
Sorry, I'm probably talking. I talk.
Maybe I can jump in here. You've been talking for a while. Yeah, like I think that's exactly it, John. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, sure, in the short and medium term, it matters, since we live in the fiat world. We have to kind of like find our way and be comfortable. And I think that's just it. Like what you said, like why is it good for Bitcoin? But if it's good for Bitcoiners, aka human beings, so what is good for human beings? And the island is good for human beings. It's a comfortable place, safe place. You have everything you need. And from my personal experience, like when I got here, I knew nobody. And now, like for the past 2 meetups, I've had people reach out to me because they are getting interested in finding new Bitcoiners in comfortable places that they want to vacation or maybe move into or stay for a while and work. Like there's this Orange Pill app that launched last year. I'm advising them as well. And through that app already, like no matter it's quite new, they reach out to me, these people, and then came to the meetup. And that's kind of like the organic movement that you mentioned. And that's the thing that matters. That being said, it's also useful that we have the ear of the government here and the president here, because somebody's going to be whispering into their ears, right? So it's better be us than shitcoiners, because that was already happening before Andre stepped in. So there is definitely value in that. So kind of like filtering the signal from the noise. But that's not the main beef. That's not like for example, what El Salvador is doing. It's a legal tender and this kind of stuff. It's just another way to control people. Legal tender is coercion. It's abuse of power when you require by force somebody to adopt Bitcoin. That's not true Bitcoin adoption. That's not organic. So as long as it's legal, and even if it's not legal, like historically, nothing has been stopped by making it illegal. Like people do whatever the hell they want. And Bitcoin is no different. In fact, if anything, Bitcoin is more resilient to bannings. But I digress. The point is that once people feel comfortable somewhere and people are working on projects and things that they feel passionate about, for us, it's Bitcoin and Bitcoin adoption. Like Rob, wherever I go, I like to go climbing in Madeira Climbing Center. I've been orange pilling the owner for a long time already. It's kind of tough, but it's like, that's how you start. Like whenever you come to the island or wherever you go, the low hanging fruit is to just simply ask, do you accept Bitcoin? And then gauge their like reaction, like what is usually this, like, oh, I'm not interested in that, or hell no, or yeah, tell me more. Sometimes that happens, like maybe 2 out of 10. In general, in the island, I've had much more success than in Finland, for example. People are not as dismissive, and that's probably because they understand the problems of government money and government overreach better than in this kind of like fairy tale welfare countries like Finland, for example. So maybe that's one thing, and of course, like these places like Venezuela that have actual severe hyperinflation, people are even more educated. So it's like it takes time, and it takes those boots on the ground, and that's exactly what we're trying to do here. I don't see F.R.E.E. Madeira as a like a government project, even though we work with the government. It's more like a necessity in this transition period while we're trying to build a parallel economy, and we're going to build that parallel economy anyway. And yes, you can do it anywhere. I chose Madeira because like I've been to 40 or so countries. I've lived in several countries as well, and this is the best place that I've found so far. I'm not saying that there's not a better place. It's just this is a place that I chose, and Bitcoin has, like I said, almost nothing to do with that. It was not because there were even Bitcoiners here. I just simply wanted to find a comfortable place for me and my family. And I think that's the key. That's the Bitcoin idea, just to be left alone, do the things that you want, use the money, save the money. And that's something that we can, the message that we can give to the locals as well, that now there is a way to actually hold on to your earnings that you put your hard work into. And merchants, of course, like now there is a way to avoid those ridiculous credit card charges, and it's like cash, but it just works like this. And when you go somewhere and you identify the owner, usually, or you can teach the waiters to accept tips in Bitcoin, small things like that, and then just tell them, like Rob said, like we're not selling anything here, like we're just doing this because of our kids. And I'll only take 5 minutes of your time. This brings you maybe a little bit more business, but it doesn't really cost you anything to give it a shot. So what do you say? And then maybe give them a little bit of Bitcoin. If they are willing to download an app, send them some Bitcoin, and then just leave them to it. Leave them alone. Like, we don't want to enforce this Bitcoin standard on anybody, because that goes completely against what Bitcoin is about, which is freedom maximalism, maximizing your freedom through technological tools. And I guess our mission is to create an environment that is increasingly hospitable, and the best way to do that is simply have more boots on the ground, more people. And that's exactly what we've been experiencing for the past 1 year, and it is accelerating. I can already see it, like more and more people messaging me, Andre, Rob, people who are already here, people who are making travel plans according to our meetups, people who are coming here to scout apartments. Like I've helped people go and check out apartments that they found online on their own. So that needs to be present for any kind of Bitcoin Citadel to happen. People wanting to go there from their own free will, not like, there's this legal framework that we built that is great for Bitcoin, because like you said, that can change. The politicians change with terms, and then what's going to happen? Who's going to be in power? And are we going to really rely on the framework that we built together with them? We can't rely on that. More like we work as their lens into this parallel world, so they can see how much more business it can bring, how much more prosperity and wealth it can bring to the island. And once that happens, once they truly see that, then it won't be possible for politicians to overrule the will of the people. But that will take a long time. Like I'm prepared to fight this fight for decades, as long as I'm alive.
Let me argue something there as well. Like, that's also why I agreed with the president to do this as a non-profit and it's outside of government, because I would never accept to do it as part of the government. Because I agree that this, I kind of disliked the way they did it in El Salvador. I respect it. It was amazing for the world, and the president, their President Bucalo was really, how can I put it?
Balls.
Yeah, ballsy. What I'm trying to say is, if we were dependent on the president being, welcome to Bitcoin, or if we were dependent on or afraid that things might change next year, we would never do anything. That's not really my point of view, right? Or I can even argue that Madeira, because being part of Portugal and being under the EU umbrella, it's actually one of the worst places in the world to try something like this. At the same time, I think if we can do it here on a grounds up, you know, and this is a very long-term project. This is not for tomorrow. What we're trying to build is a long-term thing. And if we can make it work here, we can make it work anywhere. And that also gives me a lot of strength and actually optimism for this project, because I think a lot of people are willing to help a project like this succeed, not only in Kenya, but also in a jurisdiction in Europe where they are actually belong to and want to help. And, you know, voting with your feet is interesting, but at the same time, me as a Madeiran, and now I speak on my behalf that I love my island, I want to help Madeira. I don't want to go anywhere. I want to help this island succeed. I want to make it better for my kids. So it may be more difficult if you know, the government, whatever layer of government, decides to attack us somehow or not be that welcome. But that's not going to stop us from trying.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that's been said, and that's not at the, you know, I agree that what happened in El Salvador and Bukele's initiative, I mean, that took a lot of balls, and he's flipping the middle finger to a lot of different, you know, institutions and governments in the world, and I appreciate that from someone who has probably similar criticisms of all those places. But I do agree. I mean, like Bitcoin can't be, you know, propagate or be adopted by dictate. That's the literal definition of fiat, right? And so Bitcoin has to be adopted on an individual by individual basis when they deem it to be in their best interest, when they see the value in it. And you know, case in point, and there are other benefits that are occurring in El Salvador right now, like one, because of, let's say, that regulatory clarity, and because of the assumption that things are going to be rather welcoming there, at least for the next, I don't know, 6 years or however many years Bukele has left, if you add on his second term, you know, a lot of Bitcoiners have gone there, and tourism has gone way up, and investment has gone way up, and, you know, so there's benefit. But as far as people using Bitcoin in the country, it's basically non-existent. You know, I've been there 3 times now, and I say this, you know, I really like what's happening in El Salvador. I was there in November around the Adopting Bitcoin conference. I didn't go to Zante this time. It was all spent in San Salvador. The people are, you know, and I've traveled all around the world as well. And, you know, in a lot of places, you're seen as a gringo or a Laowai or a foreigner of some kind, whatever the local word for it is. And I didn't feel that at all. Doesn't matter if it's a pharmacy, a cafe, everyone was super welcoming. I mean, we even went, and everyone, I went to China in 2009, and obviously it's on a different scale, but at that time in China, people had a real attitude like, wow, there's enormous opportunity in front of us that wasn't here, you know, 5, 10, 15 years ago. Let's get after it. Let's focus on improving our lives. Let's not focus on all the bullshit things that divide us or that don't improve our situation in life. Let's work. And I get that vibe from El Salvador, and people were super welcoming, super friendly. You know, my friend and I went down to the city center, you know, where some government house is and where a bunch of churches are, like one of the big squares. And both on our way there and on the way back, the taxi drivers were telling us that even locals wouldn't go down there 3 years ago in 2018 with anything of value, with headset, camera, glasses, whatever. And now we walk through there and people are just yelling out, "Welcome to El Salvador." And there's trade happening. People are just relaxing, enjoying the Christmas lights that they had put up. And so there's like a real sense of optimism and hope, which is, so all that is great. And the if nothing else, the international press that they have gotten because of Bitcoin and Bitcoiners has definitely contributed to that, as has, you know, Bukele's crusade against the gangs. And because nobody wants to do anything if you feel threatened, right? So people would, you know, they wouldn't interact, they wouldn't trade. You know, you'd basically try to stay safe. And now that's been alleviated to a large degree, people are trying to get more out of life, broadly speaking. And so all that is great. However, even though there's Chivo ATMs, you know, anywhere where you might want to go, people just aren't interested in the Bitcoin thing. They don't hold it against him. You know, they don't dislike him for it. He's very popular, but they're just like, not for me, not right now. That seems to be the attitude. And so, you know, long-winded way of saying, and I think most Bitcoiners would agree with this, we don't get to the place we probably all want to get to by having each jurisdiction, each centralized government, each, you know, whatever, give it the stamp of approval. We get there by it being this, you know, mycelial network of people just operating in that parallel economy. And over time, so many of those different nodes bubbling up that it's unstoppable. It becomes a parallel economy that dramatically outcompetes the legacy one, let's say. And it, you know, in that context, and in the context of Madeira, you know, one of the things I talk to Bitcoiners a lot about is how understanding Bitcoin and interacting with Bitcoin has and continues to exert an influence on their perception of value, right? And like what their prime motivations are in life and what they're striving to achieve, you know. And so perhaps earlier in life, they had more materialistic ambitions. And as they've gotten into Bitcoin, perhaps that's changed a bit. And they no longer, you know, their ambitions, the things they deem of the greatest value, are no longer necessarily or exclusively material. But there's other things in there. There's other things like meaning and freedom and family and relationships and health and environment and things like that. And so perhaps it's the case also because, you know, we all want to hold on to as many sats as we can, and we only want to give them up if we're getting something we deem to be, you know, quite valuable in return. Perhaps it's just a case that, you know, the prime driver of adoption, the prime instigator of these parallel economies is just going to be quality. Like, where are the regions where quality is evident and obvious? Because those are the places that are probably going to attract people that are increasingly tuned to perceive and desire quality. And it, you know, again, we're all biased because we're so deep down the rabbit hole here, but it does seem to be the case that it's fairly consistent that, you know, maximalists, people that are really into Bitcoin, want, you know, and perhaps value more than the average person, you know, good, healthy food and beautiful environments, be they man-made or nature-made. And they want relationships with other like-minded individuals, AKA they want to hang around more, you know, as many Bitcoiners as possible. And so perhaps that's the thing that's more sticky than just, you know, a government who's pro-Bitcoin. It's these environments that are inspiring and beautiful and attracting of people that are, you know, kind of maybe having a kind of awakening to what quality and value really is. And that's the thing that's going to pull people together. And the economies that develop off the back of that will just naturally develop. Because if you're a Bitcoiner and you have most of your wealth in Bitcoin, well, you want to pay for your haircut in Bitcoin, and you want to pay for your bananas in Bitcoin. And so, you know, maybe that's the thing we should be looking at for where these citadels are going to develop, let's say.
There's something. Sorry.
Just one thing. To that, first, I would like to hire you as a Madeira PR because you put it way better than I do with your words, John. But that's exactly what we're seeing and what we're trying to do in the end. All of this that you encapsulated as value and quality is exactly what we're seeing. Like, people, first feeling that I had when I was started being, you know, contacted by a lot of people is, first of all, people want to be around like-minded people. First thing. I think we're scattered all over the globe, and people have always a need to be in person and you know, relationships and all of that. And Madeira does those advantages on quality that you're speaking about. Some of them are already here, and what I'm feeling is the community itself that is arriving or that is already here is already starting to do or to create that quality when it's non-existent. For example, there are already people looking at doing grass-fed beef here, okay, direct-to-consumer thing. Other people are looking into regenerative farming. Other people are studying and already doing business plan for alternative schooling for the kids and places where they can do homeschooling and unschooling projects and stuff like that. So this is creating a whole a spectrum of things that Bitcoin, you know better than I do, that Bitcoin touches everything, right? And this mindset is already, the mindset of the Bitcoin is already creating this whole spectrum of things that will improve on the already good quality and life value that we have in Madeira.
Mhm.
So that's why I say building the community now, increasing the community and adding to it and embracing it or supporting it is the most important thing right now, because we're still in the first steps of all of this. And that's what I meant when I said that most of the other stuff will almost grow organically from there, like the mycelium that you were referring to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's something more to say about the government adoption of Bitcoin. That's not something to take lightly, in my opinion, because what we are looking at in Bitcoin as technology is potentially the most comprehensive financial surveillance system, like a walled garden. So maybe we want to be a little bit careful of, like, I see a lot of even Bitcoiners championing this government adoption of Bitcoin. That's not necessarily good. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not. Like, think about a gold standard, but instead of gold, the governments hoard Bitcoin and make it illegal for individuals to hold, or at the very least control the exchanges, the exchange of Bitcoin, and also issue paper Bitcoin or some kind of a fiat on top of this like fractional reserve Bitcoin. I just see that's like if we pander too much, us Bitcoiners, to the governments and champion their Bitcoin adoption, maybe it will backfire quite badly. So I would say I would take it back to the individual. Like, all the governments, all the countries rather, and governments too, are composed of sovereign individuals that are, their sovereignty level, of course, may vary, but regardless, every country is composed of individuals. So we need to reach those individuals at grassroots. And I would like to believe, even though the reality slaps me in the face all the time with that, I would like to believe that people want to be fundamentally free, like all animals. People don't want to be caged, although the reality doesn't seem to reflect that very accurately. But the problem, I guess, there is that people have been fed this lie, and I myself included for most of my life, that we are the privileged and the most lucky people and the most free people and freedom of speech and everything, as long as you follow the rules. And now that we see the rope tightening on the rules, and our liberty is taken away little by little. And Bitcoin is such a powerful technology. You hear people talking about it as a weapon. I don't see it as a weapon of aggression necessarily, but it could be used as an oppression tool as well. But it's up to the people. People don't have to adopt government, fiat, Bitcoin, reserve currency, whatever. But if we don't get there first to the individuals and orange pill them and show them that there's actually now an alternative, that's exactly what I see happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with all that. And I do think, I mean, again, it's so obvious, really, that, again, you can have a government and they can say Bitcoin is legal tender. And as is the case in El Salvador, most people can say, who cares? Like, we'll use US dollars. And the technical and the historical and the monetary and the economic case you might, pitch to them, if you could get their attention, doesn't really land. But if someone walks into a, community, a town, what have you, like seems to be developing in Madeira, or perhaps someplace like El Zante, or perhaps some places in Texas, in the States, or, all these budding places around the world where people are simply thriving more because they've adopted this technology, and by thriving, I mean, they're happier, they're healthier, they have better relationships, perhaps, they have greater financial security, all those things that pretty much everyone is seeking in life. Those are the things that people wake up in the morning and they go pursue, but it's almost like they're not going to make that connection theoretically. It has to be seen. And it seems to be the case that these places and these communities where, quality of various kinds is drawing people together, those are the greatest pitches for why people might go, oh, I want some of that. not, my government in all of its, wisdom has decided to grant me the ability to adopt something or said that I can do this now. Of course, like government can get in the way, and the less it gets in the way, the better. I'm fully on board with that. So I'd rather they not impose things on me that prohibit me from doing, what I'd like to do. So it's not that we're impervious to its, machinations, but I do think that the more compelling pitch, the thing that's more persuasive, is showcasing that when people get together and make these choices freely of themselves, what results from that is exactly what people are seeking in life, just simply, in a way imagined better than perhaps they were probably imagining, in a way that was freer, in a way that is safer, in a way that is more secure, more wealthy, more abundant, all those things. And I think that is ultimately the thing that's going to orange pill the most people. It's them observing the example.
Can I interrupt you, John? Because I would like to add, you were talking about showcasing. And, much more important for me, at least my perspective, and why I'm very, very keen on, I'm working in the background in some projects that I want to see developed, exactly because I want to showcase, well, not only to other Bitcoiners in the community, but the whole people of Madeira, not the money itself, not the currency itself, but how the network and the technologies that help the network, like mining, can be very helpful for an island like ours. I think that will be a lot more important for people, to give real life examples of a technology helping real people on the ground every day. I'm going to give you an example. So as I said, we are very fortunate to have an amazing advisory board. And just today, this is being developed, but I can speak about it, no problem. So one of the projects we want to develop is the waste management and biogas generation. So, and this is something that for an island like Madeira it's a win-win-win for everyone. And I'll try to explain, I'm not technical, but I'll try to explain on a high level what we want to do. So Madeira has a lot of bio-waste. And nowadays, we have sugarcane production, banana production, wine production, chicken coops, meat, whatever, everything bio-waste on the island, the hundreds of tons of bio-waste that we produce annually in Madeira, 70% of it is burnt, and the other 30% goes on a landfill. So they don't use it for anything nowadays. And the 70% that are burned, it's methane going to the air, right? Which is the worst polluter. And the other 30%, we live in an island where, size is limited. So it goes to a landfill, which is also not good, right? And we can not only reduce all the waste, save the environment at the same time. So reduce the methane production of Madeira and just release CO2, which is much better than the methane, and save the littering or the place where they store the landfill space that they use nowadays. And we can connect to the grid. So be another provider of energy to the grid, locally produced, and when not needed, you'll have the miners being the consumers of last resort and monetizing the whole thing. And as a byproduct, you get fertilizer because we import the fertilizer nowadays. Chemically, industrial fertilizer, which is actually worse than this one that is produced on the waste management facilities. So it's a kind of project that everybody wins. You help the government, you help the people, you help the farmers, you help everyone, you help the public grid. And this is not about Bitcoin, the asset, at all. It's just using a part of the technology of the network to help real life projects. And that is a lot more important, in my point of view, to showcase, as you were using that word, showcase the importance and how Bitcoin can be implemented in a win-win situation for everyone, without talking about price, the asset, anything, to showcase, what the technology can do for an island like Madeira.
Totally. And it never ceases to amaze me just how how well Bitcoin aligns incentives. I mean, and in this particular case, you're taking literal garbage, not just so-called waste energy that's just, sequestered in some way, but literal garbage, and turning that into the highest form of optionality that we know of, which is the best money, i.e. Bitcoin. And, to all the benefits that you just said, so it ticks so many boxes. And, it's good for everyone. And like you said, you don't have to be a supporter of Bitcoin. You don't have to understand the economic or monetary case. You can just say, wow, look at this technology allowing us to do all this good, and of course that's going to pique a lot of people's interest, and maybe they'll try to learn more about it. I want to ask about, so a lot of people, at least in my discussions, Madeira's come up, beautiful place, want to make a visit, potentially look at, a home or a second home there. What's the property market there like? I've had some initial or I did some initial searches online rather, and it seems a little bit expensive, but that's just from looking online. So what are you guys' impressions of the property market there, and what can you do with land? So obviously a lot of Bitcoiners are interested in having big pieces of land with lots of privacy, potentially the ability to grow food, raise cattle, have a ranch sort of thing. Is that possible there? And what kind of prices are we looking at?
Yeah, so it is a lot more expensive than it used to be. Just last year, real estate, I saw in the news like 2 weeks ago, in 2022, it increased an average of 28% the price of property in Madeira. So that's completely bollocks, but we all know the reason that's happening. It's not only in Madeira, it happened everywhere, right? And there is a lag, worldwide, the economy has a lag. We are used to that in Madeira. Like whatever happens in the States, as we saw with the real estate prices in the United States and Canada, they went through the roof, and then they are collapsing. Now they are collapsing. And we have a lag to Europe and again to Madeira. I think Madeira is always like, we have, whatever happens in the States happens a few months or years later in Madeira. I think it's, the connectedness of today's world and the economy, the intrications of the economy. So it has a lag, and the chain takes a while to arrive to some other places of the world. So it did increase a lot. It's a lot more expensive, especially in prime locations in Funchal, because not only Madeira is limited, but the main city where half the population lives, it's even more limited. So I would say that the downtown Funchal and the prime areas around, especially closer to the ocean, and prime locations of Funchal are very expensive. Also, after COVID, with all the nomads,
sorry to interrupt, but what's, just so everyone has a perspective, what's very expensive? Like, let's put a number on it.
Well, it depends on what kind of high quality apartment, or just let's just call it a regular nice quality apartment downtown Funchal, 2-bedroom, should cost you at least 350K. But that's for 350 to 400K nowadays. But that's a very normal apartment that, maybe 3 years ago, you could get the same apartment for 200K.
Right.
So it's a big difference. And whatever I'm saying that it's expensive, it's to locals' eyes also, because you have to realize that our prices are not the same, of course, than the main cities in the US and the big cities like even Lisbon and main cities of Portugal. Our average salary in Portugal is way less than the average salary in France or England and so on. So everything's proportionate, right? So it's very expensive for a local, and there was an added problem on top of this is for the last years, because the developers and the big contractors saw a lot of demand of higher net worth individuals from elsewhere that were coming to Madeira, and there was a lot of demand. Most of the real estate that was built now and is still being built, there are a lot of projects now going on in Madeira on real estate, are all more, on the high-end luxury kind of style, So we got these new buildings. It's crazy for a local. They are charging between 500K to 800K for one bedroom in one of those new luxury condos. So, and because the contractors and developers are making so much money on this new, higher quality developments, there was not much being built on the more medium to affordable, construction. So that also helped increase the prices a lot, the average price.
Hey, John, in my layman view, Andre knows the market here really well. I was in Barcelona and I had a 2-3 bedroom close to the sea. I had a sea view, and I also stayed in another one close by. So I know the price range there. From where I am right now, my view is just absolutely stunning, nicer than Barcelona. Barcelona was double the price than what I'm in now.
Right.
So, if you're from Madeira, the price is crazy. But I have people who are looking to relocate from London, and 2-bedroom apartment.
But that's, Rob, but that's the problem. People from the outside come with a totally different perspective.
I know.
And when they come to this high end, that we see as high end luxury apartments, like they're charging 800K for a T2. And people from the outside come to Madeira and they're like, oh my God, Madeira is beautiful. Yeah. And we can see the sea from here. Everybody sees the sea from Madeira. It's not, for us, it's nothing special, right? but for a foreigner, he gets enchanted by that apartment. And it's like half the price that he would get a T2 in London. So it's an instant buy for them. But for a local, it's crazy expensive.
Oh,
but also,
that's the problem for Madeira.
Yeah, exactly. But so you get foreigners, wealthy foreigners that come here and just buy, property like T2 there, T3 there, and whatever there for the same price, so that they get a luxury high quality apartment in London. They get like 4 or 5 properties here for the same price. So actually for them it's cheap, yeah, but for us it's expensive. So
what are the ranching sort of idea opportunities there? Because if half the population is in Funchal, then it sounds like there's a lot of empty land. So what's going on with all that?
And that is exactly where I was going to, but I was talking about this, very in high demand places in Funchal, in the main city, where it's the best locations in the city. But as soon as you start moving a bit away from Funchal, things get very, very different. Just the other day, I was searching for a plot for a Bitcoiner that wants to be, as you said, with his own land, doing his own thing, having his own solar panels, just going away from everything.
That's what pretty much everyone wants.
And, I was searching for land and I found so many things. Like one of the locations that I sent them was this 30K square meter, 30,000 square meter plot in Santana that was selling for 120K. So this is pretty affordable. And there are a lot more places like this, of course.
I heard there are restrictions there in terms of what you can do with the land. Like for some reason, like raising cattle or something is far more restricted there than in other places. Is that accurate?
It depends on you have to see again, Madeira has a very interesting geography. It's a lot, very steep and mountains and valleys, and I think 60-something% of the whole island is protected. It's forests you cannot build, like there are a lot of places that you cannot do anything basically. And there are some restrictions on cattle, but that's not local, again, not local laws. They are EU directives that you have to comply, and like you need, I don't know, something stupid like 10,000 square meters per cow, and of course Madeira is not Texas, so we don't have that kind of land, so you can do a proper like big beef facility, for example, grass-fed thing. So, but that's also one of the things that I told you that we are looking within the local powers to see if we can change something to make it more appealing. And we can, for example, a 30K plot in Santana in the North Shore can have more cattle heads than they can nowadays,
Right. All right. Well, we'll close it out soon, but we did discuss a little bit more about the Free Madeira initiative itself. I know we've touched on it a little bit, but is there anything we haven't mentioned about it in terms of, what your guys's ambitions are for it, or what the more immediate initiatives are? Like, just give me a little bit more of a rundown, anyone, on like what the next thing the primary focus, let's say right now, is for the Free Madeira project. Like, what's the
So
next?
I'll let
brick?
you guys speak, I promise, but let me just go over.
Speak
There's a
on
lot, there's a lot of things that we are planning to do. Maybe too many, so we have to prioritize actually.
Well,
But,
that's what I mean. What's
for
on the
me,
first on the chopping block?
first on the shopping block. So, as I told you, the energy projects are something that I want to see developed and the fastest, the best. The waste management, the study that we're doing with Troy and some guys from Texas that are helping me on the study of the overall energy grid to introduce mining at the public energy company to increase the renewables and the energy production inside of Madeira and reducing the imports of fuel. Those are very big projects that I'm very focused on helping go, let's say. Another big project is the remittances project. So we want to help the Venezuelan community to have a better way and educate them on how to use the network. Some of them already do, but we want to make it easier for them on how to use the network for remittances from and to Venezuela. They still use a lot of the old fiat rails and black markets, and it's crazy. I'm starting, I'm already looking for a long time, but I finally found what I think is the best building where we are going to do the Bitcoin business hub. So it's gonna be the headquarters of Madeira, but we will also have their offices and the co-working space for Bitcoin only companies that we are incorporating and bringing to the island, and some are going to be incorporated and started here. This goes on par with other projects, like we're going to do the meetups there and the podcast, and it's going to be a place like a place for the community overall. We are planning a Bitcoin coding academy. We already we have a business plan very much developed. We're finishing it and almost ready to present it to investors that we want to incorporate in the building as well. This is being run by a Bitcoiner from the Netherlands that has a huge experience in a coding academy that he used to have in the Netherlands. He ran in the Netherlands for the last 20 years. Another thing is we want to start here. We are helping to start here the VC investment fund of Madeira. We are going to incorporate an investment fund for like EgoDebt and 1031, a similar thing for Bitcoin companies. More. We want to have the Bitcoin ATMs as well, not only to help the remittances of the Venezuela guys, but have it as a service for everyone. And yeah, that's just some of the stuff that I want to prioritize right now.
Nice. As silly as it sounds, maybe not silly, but like it's not one of those like big, doesn't seem like one of those big plans, but Bitcoin ATMs can actually be fairly powerful, not only, as you mentioned, for remittances, but like if you're someone who has most of their wealth in Bitcoin and you'd prefer to transact in cash everywhere you go for privacy reasons and for parallel economy reasons and all that kind of stuff, they can be, an incredibly useful tool for not having to interact with, the fiat rails, let's say. All right, guys, did the other guys have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, ATMs, I think, can serve even a more important part, and this is adjacent to what maybe I can bring the most value for F.R.E.E. Madeira on the island, and that's the creating the boots on the ground team, which is basically just me and Rob randomly talking to people wherever we go. But I want to do it more organized, maybe have like a dedicated full day to knock some doors and try to get the word out. And one of the things that I experienced most is that a lot of people are worried about cashing out, which is understandable. Small businesses, they have expenses. They're not in a position necessarily to hold all of it or maybe none of it. But they might be interested in getting this extra revenue stream from possible Bitcoiners and being on the BTC map and all that. So ATM could be a really simple way to do that. I mean, of course, we can go there and offer to help them and set up a open node or whatever, but that's kind of like a lot of friction. So if you have an ATM, and everybody kind of knows how that works. So if you have a way to cash out, I think that would be good for merchant adoption. And further down the line, of course, first we start by ourselves, but very soon, once we get more people involved, I can start training these boots on the ground. So we have the ground team, and then once we find some interest from merchants enough, we can start with workshops. So we can actually invite those merchants to learn more about this. And then that's another team that we're going to have that are going to be educators. And as an educator myself, I think that's where I can contribute the most. So I'm going to be educating the educators. So creating this framework of onboarding merchants, knock on the doors, give some flyers, teach them how to download a wallet. Once they get interested, they can call us or message us, book a time on a workshop, and then we will have like all range of different kinds of workshops and tutorials and presentations for wherever you are, like from the very small business or a very small sourcing company for like vegetable vendors, starting from a simple mobile app all the way into like running your own BTC Pay server, self-hosted, which I believe that is not like we're nowhere near there, but that's the range that we can develop, and that's the road that I see us on. And I think I'll be focusing on that mostly, because that's already something that I do out of my own. Wherever I go, I do that anyway. And I guess it's just once I have the time, I'll do it more organized. Nice. And I think Rob will help there.
Sorry to interrupt. I with the excitement of all these energy projects and the remittances and everything, there are so many things that I forgot one of the first ones, which is we are the education part. And not only on the merchants and on educating businesses to use it on their daily lives, but we are starting a more full-on education projects on the origins of money and how some money is important, and going from there. We are working with the Looking Glass guys. We already translated their course to Portuguese, and we are working on translating the materials that they prepared on that course for the teachers to give in-person classes. And we are planning several workshops, like BTC session style, to help the whole community that is interested in different parts of the Bitcoin ecosystem. So education is also a key part of all of this.
Wow. So you guys got a lot to work on. All right, I'm going to do a few quick ones, and then I'll hand it off to each of you for kind of closing remarks, and then we'll shut it down. But citizenship via investment program. We spoke on that briefly when we had that call with that Jeff set up with everybody. What's the, give me the the basics of that. Is there one, and if so, like what's the investment and how does it work?
There's there are several programs where you can get the citizenship, either not very cheap. unfortunately, but that's one of the things we have to comply with the national rule. That's a program for the whole of Portugal. Although for real estate, for example, it's allowed in just certain parts of the country, like Madeira. It's allowed here, where you can buy a 500k property and apply for the citizenship. It's pretty straightforward, actually. If you buy a property over 500k and you can do the golden visa process, and you'll get immediate residency, and 5 years later full citizenship for you and your family. And
Okay.
you know, 500k seems very, very expensive 3 years ago. Now most of the properties here in very good locations, as I told you, are, you know, over that. You can get it through investing, for example, as well. So you can get it through incorporating a company here, for example, and making sure, like, I think you have to, it's also 500k, and you have to create a company locally and create 5 jobs at least. So that's another way you can do it. There's also investment funds, like we are thinking about doing that, where it's a regular investment fund where you also have to invest 500k, but the fund can invest in real estate or tech or Bitcoin investing, stuff like that. So it's basically through investment in either kind of assets, and it's 500k at least.
Will you get a knock on the door from the Gestapo if you try to homeschool your kids in Madeira, or what are the homeschooling laws there?
Rob, you can go on this one. Yeah.
Yeah, my wife's been looking into it. If you come here and you are homeschooling, this is something that we're also having a look at working on, because there's just more and more people. Their rules, the laws are pretty antiquated and unsure. And you know, you hear from one person one thing, one person the other. If you have a degree, or the kid has a tutor, then that's if you're in the system. Then you would need one of the parents to be have a degree or be a tutor. We're looking to set up a land. It's called a place to be. It's going to be BE, but the B might have a little angle to it. It's a place to be for children to be, not forced or coerced to be self-authority. And there'll be pods or yurts, places to rent out for a week or month, and all, like, have a big community where and a co-working space. That hopefully we'll do that this year. We're also talking with Andre. We went to see this big, absolutely stunning Bitcoin community building type thing, which is still you know, when that's not certainty yet, but we could do a place for the kids to, like a self-directed learning environment for the kids there. And if we, but in terms of the, you know, most kids are, there's a group of unschooled kids here, pretty big, and my wife's working with that, and it's daily. We're doing meetups. We had a homeschooling meetup at Andre's co-working the other day, and there's just more and more people, and they're desperate to have something organized. So we're talking with Andre. I don't want to say anything on here, but we're you know, looking to educate the government. The government just doesn't really realize that people want.
Yeah, but let me say something. It is allowed. You can homeschool. You just have to comply with certain rules, as
Yeah.
Rob was saying. Like one of the parents needs to have a degree, or whoever is teaching the kids, right, needs to be a tutor or have a degree. And then it's not all of the school years, but in some years you do have to do the test.
Yes.
Of the system to see if you're up to standards, right? Whatever that means.
Indoctrinated.
Exactly. But you can do it. It's not like Germany or Austria where they're forbidden at all.
Or France.
Although that's, again, one of the things that we're studying within the local powers to see if we can even, you know, decrease the the rules, the mandatory
Right.
rules.
And also, if you come here and you're working and you want your kids homeschooled, but you work, most people work all day, then we're looking to find a way to provide the tutors or the people on the ground. So you just imagine having a huge bunch of kids with from different age groups, but from parents who are all interested in freedom, self-responsibility, self-authority, and the kids are just going to be, that's a proper school. And when the kids are allowed to mingle and be around adults is where they learn. It's not by sticking them in age groups, sticking them in a class, but I'm not going to get on about.
And I see a lot of projects popping up on the education part, either homeschooling,
Totally.
there's a huge spectrum of how you can do education, right? Closer to the system or full-on sovereign homeschooling. But there are a different spectrum of projects popping over. There are already some in place, especially for younger children. It's harder on the from 5th grade onwards, and we do need a more alternative project for older kids. But I see projects popping over everywhere, and this is not only on the Bitcoiner community. It was also in demand on the expats that we have increased a lot, especially after COVID. The nomad guys and the remote workers that came and are living in Madeira right now, and they were already thinking about these projects, and now we are finally starting to see movement or very strong movements in that area.
Nice. Love to hear that. Are there stupid laws like we have in Canada where things like raw milk are illegal, or can people work with a local farmer and get some milk for their family?
There are stupid laws because again we are in the EU, right?
Yeah.
Of course there are stupid laws. That's one of the big problems of being in the EU. It's full of stupid laws. But I don't think it's so hardcore like that one. For example, you can still, I buy my vegetables directly from the farmer.
Yeah, you could go to the farm and get milk.
Yeah, I can buy.
It's not at the grocery store.
I can go to the jam to a woman that does jam in their kitchen, whatever, and I can buy bottles of it. Of course, it's not properly legal, but nobody goes after it,
Sure.
Of course, if the woman wanted to sell the jam on the supermarket, she would have to go to the laboratory and put all that bullshit on top, and not use wooden spoons because suddenly they kill people, like never killed for centuries, but now they do because there's a corporation that needs to exist. All that sort of stuff. But we still do it. A lot of Madeirans go and have meat from the producer. They have a friend who has a pig, and they slaughter. Pig slaughtering is big in Madeira. They do it on like Christmas. They go, they slaughter the pig. Everybody gets a part of the pork. Stuff like that is still very a very Madeiran way of life. That even if the corporations do want to go, the Madeiran guy just goes like, fuck you.
Right. Good. There's still, sovereign tradition and attitudes that permeate
absolutely.
the place. All right. Well, guys, this has been great, learning about what's really going on there and getting more details on it all. Let's go around and just get, closing remarks. And if there's any, last words or things you wanted to touch on before we shut it down, then you can do so. Nico, why don't you go first?
Thanks, John. It was a great pleasure. And thanks, Andre and Rob, to do this with me. And I'm honored to be a part of it. I'm happy to live on Madeira, and you shouldn't take our word for it. Just come and see for yourself. Like, that's what I recommend to people. Like, at worst, you're going to have a nice vacation. And even if you decide that you're not going to move here, that's completely cool. Like, just come and have a chat with us, have a coffee with us, and maybe hit one of those meetups. And we're on meetup.com. You should check it out. Also, you should check out our Telegram group. It's public, Free Madeira, on freemadeira.com, obviously, and Free Madeira.org is the Twitter, I believe. And of course, my PMs are always open. So if you want to talk to me directly, it's Omnifin, both in Telegram and also in Twitter. And if you want to learn more about my company, which is Consensus Network, translating books, consensus.network, or on Twitter, consensusn. And of course, Orange Pill app, I have to mention that because I've been getting so much engagement from there. So if you haven't checked out Orange Pill app yet, that's a great way to, when you come to the island, you whip out the Orange Pill app and you will instantly see people who are on the island. Right now, it's mostly me and Rob, but whenever there's a meetup and whenever there's people coming in, there's a couple extra people there. So it's also increasing, and that's definitely an easy way to get in touch with us as well. That's all for me. Thank you, everybody.
Nice. Rob?
Yeah, please come to the island so I don't have to keep messaging Nico on Orange Pill app. I just we didn't. They've got world-class surf here. That hasn't been mentioned. Got big wave riders, world-class guys down along the coast. They've got world-class hikes. Stunning. But in terms of, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me on your show. I've learned a lot as well. I was excited about meeting you, so thank you very much. And if like Nico said, I'm here, I've got my feet, this is where I'm bringing up my kids. It's a beautiful place. We want to make Bitcoin work wherever it is. And if you're a Bitcoiner and my DMs are open, I always meet everyone for coffee. So selfishly, I love meeting Bitcoiners because it's all so interesting. So reach out, and just a big thank you to Nico and Andre, who are kind of two of the main drivers for the project.
Yeah, meeting and hanging out with Bitcoiners is always the best.
Goals.
Andre, close us out.
I just wanted to say that this is not true. It's not only Rob and Nico here. It makes it seem like it's only them dancing on the streets. There's a lot of Bitcoiners all around now, finally, fortunately, and a lot more coming. So yeah, do reach out. Do visit the island. Even don't trust verify, just come for us. As Nico said, the worst thing you can get is a nice vacation. And come and visit us because it's a wonderful island, and we can get you a Muay Thai trainer here as well, John. So that's not a problem.
I was going to ask what the martial arts scene was like there.
Yeah, it's actually quite big. There's a lot of people doing Muay Thai and other stuff, and
We
we
do,
even have
sorry.
What?
My wife and I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in town.
Oh,
Brazilian black belt there. So
Great.
yeah, but I have a friend from school, and actually the cousin of my wife, he won some like world Muay Thai thing in Thailand last year. They are quite big fighters here. So you'll have your training.
Got it all.
Well, just come and visit, follow F.R.E.E. Madeira or get on Twitter, and me and Reloge on Twitter as well. My DMs are open, and we welcome everyone to come and check it out.
Well, guys, thanks so much again for the time and sharing your experiences and your plans with the project. I will have to come and visit sometime. I'm a notorious homebody, but it sounds absolutely amazing, and it'd be great to come and hang out with you guys. So maybe in this upcoming year I'll make a trip. But either way, good luck on everything, and maybe we do another one in 6 months or so and just get an update on how things are going and bring more attention to it all.
Cool. Thank you, John.
thank you,
Awesome.
John.
Take care,
Thank
guys.
you.
See ya.
Take care. Bye.